Hi everyone, glad you could join us for today's session, Solving the 4 Major Challenges of Testing Native Apps, with expert guest speakers Nisan Jose, Rohith Ramesh, and Anand Bagmar. Before we officially kick off, I want to take a moment and introduce our speakers. Nisan is a principal consultant in mobile QA at Wipro. He is a mobile quality engineering consultant specializing in automation solutions for mobile and web. Over the past 15 years, he helped many enterprise companies implement successful mobile quality engineering processes by integrating leading mobile testing tools. Rohith is a principal engineer at Headspin. Rohith holds a master's degree in computer science from Santa Clara University and a bachelor's degree from RV College of Engineering in India. His work spanned the globe, helping mobile app developers across the world substantially improve user experience and performance. And last but not least, Anand Bagmar is a senior solution architect at Applitools. Anand is a software quality evangelist with over 20 years of experience in software testing. He specializes in product quality, strategy and execution, and building automated testing in tools, infrastructure, and frameworks. So I think it's best to let the expert speak. Anand, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Adi. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I hope you find it insightful and get some good ideas to take away from here. Let's get started with the topic, how do we solve the 4 major challenges of testing native apps? Let's quickly look at what is the difference and similarities between mobile and web testing. There are certain common aspects when it comes to mobile and web testing, and that is the functionality. Regardless of where your product is served to the users, whether it's a native app, mobile web, or web, feature testing, functionality testing is the same. And we can go in greater lengths about these similarities, but let's focus on what really is different about mobile. There are various different aspects when it comes to the differences. It could be differences related with the device-specific behavior, and that could be related to hardware and/or software, form factors, resolutions. The deployment and release approach, to me, is one of the biggest challenge and difference which is not thought about as much. And how is this rollout really going to happen to your users? In a web and API context, when you do a release, the next time your users come to your product, they have the latest released version of your product. However, in case of mobile apps, native apps I'm talking about, it really depends on how the rollout strategy that you have, how Google and Apple, for example, are going to, how you control that behavior of rolling out the release to the users. If the users really want to upgrade the app or not, that is in their hand as well. And if there's a problem, how do you roll it back? In native apps, you cannot really roll back an app that is installed on the user's device. So how do you really think about it and mitigate those challenges? So what this means is the test strategy for your mobile apps really has to evolve and include all these different aspects in your strategy and execution. One aspect of it is how do you set up your internal environments? How are you going to create your app builds to point to your internal set of APIs and backend servers? And are you going to create a new app for each different environment, or are you going to make the app configurable to point to different environments? How do you really automate the repeated scenarios in a fashion that will take care of this different environments that your app is pointing towards, the backend systems? And that again becomes a very interesting aspect when it comes to native compared to web. Because you don't really control the user behavior, how they will adopt the new app versions or not, or you cannot roll back those installed apps, you need to really ensure that your app is very well tested in all different possible situations and scenarios. And that's where you would do more thorough user acceptance testing. You would be doing dogfooding your own apps in your internal ecosystem and try to get most of the issues known and tackled before you do the release to your general users. Depending on the nature of the app, you also need to think about, should you be doing on-field testing for your apps with real users and real network conditions in different locations where users might really be, to really understand the impact of how the app is behaving in those conditions for your real users. And last but not the least, you can also think about beta releases to get your real users to play around with the app and use the app functionality and give feedback to you before you make a general release of the app. So this is how your functionality would evolve for native apps. Another big aspect of how native apps creates a different challenge is in the way of working. A typical SDLC has got requirement, design, implementation, testing, and you evolve based on the feedback that you get out of that. And this process could be a waterfall, iterative waterfall, agile, Kanban, Scrum, any of these methodologies. But a big disruptor in all of this way of working has been continuous delivery. How do you really get your changes as quickly as possible, built, tested, and fixed, and into the hands of the users as quickly as possible in an iterative fashion so your users remain interested in what the organization is doing and how the product is evolving? So this creates a very big challenge where you now have to keep repeating your activities more often than before in a faster pace and ensure everything is working fine. So the biggest thing here is how do you ensure what was working before continues to work now, and you focus on testing what the delta has been since the last release cycle that is there. And one way to ensure this behavior is to automate as much as you can, and that is where the test automation pyramid concept becomes very powerful and a very core essential aspect in your CI/CD lifecycle, where the pyramid states that you have got various different types of tests automated, and you have got focused exploratory testing which is going on top of that automation. And these tests have a very big significance in terms of time to execution, cost of implementation, and impact of the product as well. Also, a big aspect of this is the kind of impact each test has, where unit and service tests will have impact on your technology implementation versus your UI and exploratory testing focuses mostly on your business side of features. The test automation pyramid also includes NFRs like security and performance, accessibility, and pretty much any NFR which is applicable to your product can be relevant here and can be automated in some fashion or not, so that your exploratory testing can focus on what has not really been automated or cannot be automated. So this is an way how you can get into repeating your testing activities and keeping up to speed with the continuous delivery life cycle. Now that we understand the differences in how this is working, what is changing in terms of strategy for native apps, and how CD is affecting that strategy, let's look at some of the core challenges that come into being for testing and building native apps. So at this point, I'll hand it over to Nyson, who will talk about the functionality challenges.
Thank you, Anand. Hope you can see my screen now. So before getting into these challenges, let us take a closer look at the mobile landscape and the factors which will affect the quality of mobile apps. As we all know, the first factor which we have to consider is the OS platforms. There are multiple popular OS versions which are used by our customers. It includes Android, iOS, Windows, and the popular versions in each of these OS platforms. Of course, Anand has just explained the relevance of App Store here, wherein you don't have much control on the releases which you are doing. The other factor which will impact is the devices. There are multiple devices which are popular with various processing capacities and various screen size, which are again manufactured by multiple vendors. Third-party integration is another most important factor which we have to consider, because most of the mobile apps interacts with other apps or external systems, which are kind of black box for the app under test. Performance is another key factor which basically defines the end user experience. And when it comes to mobile application, it is not just the server load. We have to consider the network load as well as the actual response times which the customers are seeing in the end devices. The most critical factor in mobile landscape is real world conditions. When I say real world conditions, it is the network conditions out there in the field, the differences in the telecom service providers, the location-specific impacts on the applications or devices. I think most of you would have encountered the situation that issues are being reported in the production app for the features which were thoroughly tested in your testing cycle. Do you have any idea why? What could be the potential reason? It is mainly because of these real-world conditions out there in field. Now that we have understood the mobile ecosystem in detail, let us look at what are the challenges which will be faced by a mobile application testing team or a mobile app test house. The first challenge, of course, is the immense testing landscape. We have already seen how vast is the testing landscape for mobile applications are. So the challenge here is how to cover the app functionality across popular OS versions, the devices, various screen resolutions, and the other non-functional aspects of mobile in our testing cycle. The next challenge is with respect to the network and location impact. How will we cover the network volatility and the location aspects which our customers are facing in our testing cycle? This is essential to uncover the potential real-world issues which customers will face in our testing cycle itself. As you know, the business always demands faster releases of new features and defects. This will often result in stringent deadlines. The challenge is how to ensure quality testing within the stringent timelines. The fourth challenge is the intermittent defects, right? The challenge is how to handle the intermittent defects. You will see lots of intermittent defects which are difficult to reproduce in a mobile application testing cycle. Hence, the challenge is how to capture maximum details when a defect occurs, which can provide detailed insight to the defect and help the faster root cause analysis and debugging. Unstable infrastructure is another important challenge for mobile testing. As we know, the mobile test infrastructures are not stable as other traditional channels. Issues like freezing of the devices, network drop, USB connector issues, etc. can happen anytime, which can basically reduce your automation efficiency and derail your complete continuous delivery pipeline as well. Hence, the challenge is how to reduce the test infrastructure instability and improve the effectiveness of automation and your continuous delivery. Now, the interesting part is that even if you have all these challenges and this wide landscape to cover, the business always demand for faster testing and increased quality. And of course, all this has to be done with a reduced cost. I'm handing over to Anand and Rohit to cover the user experience and the performance validations here. Over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Nyson. I'll quickly share the screen. Okay, here we go. So what do we really mean by consistent user experience? Let's take a quick example. I'm sure most of us have tried to solve these kind of puzzles in newspapers or different sources, right? Find the differences between two images. Here's a puzzle for you. Here are two images which are almost identical. Find the differences in them. Now, if you had a lot of time, if you have the luxury of time, you would understand and look at it and analyze it and say, oh yes, maybe there is this boat that is missing. This color of the umbrella is missing over here. And given more time, you'll be able to figure out probably all the differences that is there. What if I told you that here are the differences? And now you can proceed to the next thing. Why is this difference coming in? In the context of a software development, this is what really happens from a user experience perspective. We are not really talking about testing the user experience, but what we are talking about here is assuming the product has been designed and developed with a particular expectation of user experience. How do you ensure that the same experience is delivered to the users every time? And with this fast CI/CD life cycle that we have going on, it is very challenging to really do this at your own pace and figure out each screen, each page of your app and find out the differences if it is working correctly or not. So the challenges when it comes to visual validation is that it is mostly done manually. It is very tedious because there's a lot of concentration that the human needs to put in over there to figure out the differences in the context of where that product is, why that state is like that. And because it is manual and tedious, it can get very error prone for sure. And it is definitely impossible to scale and repeat in the days of CD. Okay, and we'll see countless examples of visual differences coming in. Here are some examples where this has happened to Twitter, where the tweets have got misaligned. It has happened to UPS, where the app, when installed on a tablet or iPad, was not rendering correctly. It can happen to media websites, where if the length of the article title is longer than expected, it is overlapping with the actual content of the article itself. It can happen with Amazon, as it happened in the Amazon US a couple of years ago, where everything was working fine functionally, but in production, they realized that the numbers are going down. And on investigation, they find out that the CSS is broken, because of which the page is not rendering correctly. So visual validation actually can be a blocker for CI/CD for any and every type of organization. And if it is not done, there is a huge impact. The impact is in form of business or revenue loss. It can be in terms of brand or credibility loss. And most important, right, your users are not forgiving these days. Any small goof up that happens, the attention span is small. There are so many other options that the users have. They will move on to find that kind of service from somewhere else if your product is not working correctly. So visual validation is really the key to making sure that at the fast pace, we've got things really solved in various aspects, but this is one area where you really need to focus on as well. The challenges when it comes to automated visual validation, there are a lot of tools in the market which will help you do this in some form of automated way, but how do you really manage the false positives and negatives when it comes to images being close to what was expected, but there is some difference over there? How do you find that out easily? Baseline maintenance, creation and maintenance is one of the biggest challenge, especially if your product is available on various different form factors and browsers, for example. How do you create baseline for all of these and make sure you're doing an apple-to-apple comparison in terms of what is expected versus what is seen? And browsers, devices, resolutions, viewports just adds to that complexity. And of course, once your baseline is done and you are able to run your test, how do you really look at the results of what is being given by the tool and do maintenance on your baselines and take decisions about if your product is working as expected or not? So these are some of the challenges when it comes to automated visual validation. A typical from a report of state of automated visual testing, which was published earlier this year, if on average, if you have got 25 number of visual defects escaping per release in a particular product, it is estimated that the organization is spending close to 145,000 US dollars per year, per release rather, to fix those issues. So visual defects do have a very big impact if it is not caught as quickly as possible. The challenge expands when it comes to user experience validation if your users are in different geographies, because the effect of CDNs, content delivery networks, and caching can play a big role in terms of user experience. The localized content, which means I cannot rely on the content being served correctly only in one region. How is it being served for localized content in different regions is also important. The dynamic nature of the content can become a differentiating factor as well. And of course, the network differences in each area. These can all contribute in various ways to how your user experience is going to be delivered in those particular regions. I'll hand it over to Rohit to talk about the app performance impact and challenges.
Thank you, Anand. So now moving on to the third challenge, which is the application performance for global reach. So first of all, why do you need to test in different geographies, right? What is the necessity? Because you have a global customer base. Like today, we have today the apps we are testing have customers who are using apps around the world, right? So in that case, like let's say it's a Facebook or Uber, they have customers around the world, North America, Africa, India, I mean, name it. They basically have customers all around the world. So you basically want to test from regions where your users are connecting from. And different popular devices. So each region has different popular devices. Let's say it's in India, there's Xiaomi, there's OnePlus, which are like kind of popular devices. In the US, it's iPhones and Samsung, which are really popular. So each region has kind of their own top popular devices, because we saw earlier, right, when Nyson was kind of explaining, there are like a zillion Android devices out there in the market, and each region has their own specific devices that they use, and different mobile networks. So again, globally, it's not the same mobile network. So there are the throughputs are different. There's AT&T, there's Sprint, T-Mobile in North America, there's Telstra in Australia, Airtel, Vodafone. So I mean, all these networks have their own network speeds, and they have their strengths, their weaknesses. So you really want to test in different networks or real networks where the users are connecting from, which is the real test for performance. And here is an example of Instagram, wherein this is the KPI that is being measured here is the time to upload a picture in different parts of Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, Brisbane, and Adelaide. So if you see, the KPIs change across different regions, of course, and then by hourly, these KPIs change the time it takes to upload the picture, and sometimes the peak hours and off-peak hours. So knowing this and accepting that this is going to be kind of the way how the networks are, or from where the users are connecting from, it makes really important sense to go ahead and test in the real networks on real devices globally, and really know what is the user experience looks like. Here is a summary. I've left it here so that you can come back and revisit when we send out the webinar, but I'll skip this. Going to the next challenge, which is basically continuously monitoring key performance indicators of an app, or KPIs, which is very popularly called as. So why do you want to track all these key performance indicators in a CI/CD pipeline? First one, do you basically want to get more value out of your regression test suites, right? So basically today you're running functional tests, and again, just running functional tests and getting a pass or a fail. And now when you're tracking these key performance indicators like the login time or logout time, the time to add to cart, so if you're monitoring all these KPIs in a regression test suite, so it makes so much more sense to get value out of the tests which are already running in the CI/CD pipeline, right? And the second one is getting visibility, right? So today, let's say it's conventional testing when we run our regression test suites, which are basically kind of functional tests, right? In the end, you get a pass or a fail, and there are logs. So what if there was a way that you can basically kind of do the functional tests, not only get the pass or a fail, capture a video, capture network data, and this gives you so much more visibility into what is happening in your test cases. Meaning, maybe there's a network error, maybe the test has failed because of a crash, maybe there was a script issue. So kind of going and looking at logs after some time goes out of control. So which is why you need more visibility and control over what is happening in your test cases. And reduce the development life cycle. So when you capture video, when you capture other metrics, so basically now you have video recording, which is kind of an evidence of how or where exactly the test case went wrong. So you have a repeatable test case that you can basically go and put it in a Jira ticket. And given that it has so much more context to the whole test case, it makes debugging life so much more simpler, right? So it reduces the whole development life cycle by making the situation of both the testing team and the development team seamless. And here is an example of Emirates, wherein the KPIs that are being monitored continuously in the CI/CD pipeline are launch time, search time, then time to choose a flight, right? So if you see these KPIs change over a period of time, and you basically want to, when you're running your regression test phase, you can basically set alerts as to when these KPIs are going above certain threshold, and get alerts and basically look at those exact specific tests and see what happened, or what is the kind of, why is the user experience kind of getting degraded in this particular release or in this particular build. So that is kind of why you want to track KPIs. Here is a summary of what we just discussed. And now let's see the real solution in action, and I'll hand it over to Nyson to basically go through this solution. Nyson, over to you.
Thanks, Rohit. Let me share my screen.
Nyson, this is Adi. If you could just decrease the HP microphone pop up there, it'd be great. Thank you so much.
Are you able to see my screen now?
I can see your screen, but it's just the black screen. So I don't know if you opened the demo yet.
1 second.
Okay.
Let me share it again. Okay, looks like can you see my screen now, Adi?
No, now it's the GoToWebinar. Now it's the GoToWebinar screen. Let me just see if I can switch between you again. So between you and Anand again for a second.
Please.
Okay, I handed controls over to you again. So let's try to reshare.
Let me do that. Are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah, I can see your screen now. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Anand, can you share your screen so that we can proceed from there? Looks like there is some issue with my sharing over here.
So Anand, I just made you the presenter again.
Yes, so I've shared the screen. Tyson, just let me know what you want to show, and I can.
Thank you. Thanks, Anand. So we have seen the challenges in detail, and we know we have to focus on UI, performance, and functionality to ensure quality user experience in mobile app. That too, we have to do this across various permutations of devices, OS combinations, as well as screen size. We know that automation is the solution to address this and to ensure a successful CD. Anand, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so in this demo, we will showcase a comprehensive automation which will cover the functionality, the performance, and the UI aspect of the mobile application within a single automation execution. Basically, we are showcasing how to cover the UI and the performance aspect of your app along with your functional automation, which will reduce the overall testing and ensure higher user experience. We will also showcase how to provide a detailed insight for the automation execution and the defects reported. This will in turn allow the team to conduct faster debugging and identify the performance bottlenecks quickly. We will also showcase you how you can introduce real-world network conditions into your automation, which will basically enhance your automation quality as well. So we are leveraging the industry-leading tools out there in market in order to achieve this. We are leveraging Applitools, who is the industry leader in automated UI testing for UI automation. We are leveraging Headspin, who is industry leader in mobile app testing, which provides real-world devices at real conditions and performance analysis from real-world devices. We are also leveraging Headspin. We are leveraging Azure Next platform and automated platform created specifically for mobile. This platform integrates both Applitools and Headspin to cover UI and performance validation along with functional automation. Can you move to next slide, Anand? Thanks. Let us quickly look at the demo scenarios which we are going to showcase here. So we will be running this demo in two devices, a Samsung device and an LG device. Both are hosted in Mountain View location in Headspin platform. Both these devices are running with AT&T SIM card and they are leveraging LTE network. The execution is happening from a remote location, which is from Bangalore. We are using a demo application here, basically two versions of this application, version 1 and version 2, basically to demonstrate the UI differences here. And with respect to scenarios, we will open the application via automation. We will validate the UI of homepage. We will click on echo box, which is an option in that homepage, and we will go to this echo box page. In this execution, we will collect the performance metrics for the execution as well. We will basically do two rounds of execution here. In the first execution, we will use the same version of the app, which is the version 1. Wherein the two devices will have the version 1 application. In the second execution, in Samsung Galaxy device, we will change version 1 to version 2, so that you will see there is a failure in that execution because there will be a UI change. We will be leveraging parallel execution here. So basically, you will see the framework is running the test case simultaneously in both the devices, and we are leveraging the BDD approach here. Adi, can you share the screen to me, the rights to share the screen to me?
Just did.
Okay, Rohit, you want me to play the video and give that, right?
No, can you see my screen now?
Oh, yes, perfect.
Yeah. So I'm starting with the execution here. So I'm starting with the first execution, wherein we are using the version 1 of the application. So you can see the framework is already integrated with Jenkins, which will support the parallel execution, as well as which will support the continuous the CD part of it. Is the screen reflecting there, or?
Now we can see your. Now we can see just your desktop. Before we could see the project, but we can't see. We saw the video with Jenkins, but we now only see your desktop.
Okay, Just give me a second. Let me start it again.
Okay.
Nyson, while you figure that out, shall we do the demo of the other piece and we can come back to this one? You want to try that?
I think it should be okay by now.
Cool.
Yeah, it's fine. We can
Are
see.
you able
We
to
can
see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So we have started the execution now. So you can see the both these devices are there in the Headspin platform, which is hosted in US Mountain View location, and you can see the both the screens. So as I said, right, it is a demo application which we have used for this demo. So it is basically looking right now. It is basically validating the UI of it. Now it will go to the echo box page. Yeah, one device, both the devices have gone to echo box. It will now type hello there, and now the automation will finish, and the device will get disconnected from the automation framework. So you can see the automation, the device is disconnected. Now let us look at the report part of it. Right, so this is the report created for this particular execution. So I'm getting into the device here. You have two reports created for both the application. I mean for both the devices here. So this is the report created for Nexus 5. You can see the functionality is working fine. I can look at the screenshots here. Everything is fine. We have a link here which will basically go to the UI part. So if you come here, you will see the report for the performance insight as well as the UI part. So I'm just opening it. So let me get into the Applitools ICE report first. So this is the execution report. You can see everything is fine from a UI perspective. No defects in UI. So both these devices, we are seeing it over here. So it looks like I'm facing a, yeah, it is coming up now. So we'll get in, we will showcase this report as well. So meanwhile, let us get into the next demo part, wherein we will showcase the execution, the second execution. So we are starting with the build here, again from Jenkins. We are getting into the console output. You can see the framework is running. It is trying to get the devices from Headspin platform. This is the Headspin platform which you are seeing. You can see the same device coming up, but in this execution for Samsung device, we are using version number 2 of this application. So basically you will see a difference in the UI here. So you can see here this dual web demo. You don't see it in the Samsung device because it is running with the version number 2. So we will see the automation is capturing that, even though the functionality is as expected, is working as expected. So the LG Nexus has gone till the last page. We are waiting for the Samsung device to continue with the execution here. The execution and LG Nexus is over. It is proceeding in Samsung, and we will see that it is, yes. So both the execution is over. Let us go back and check the reports here. So this is the execution report. So let us look at the Nexus report first from this execution, which ideally should be a pass. Everything should work fine. Yes, everything is green. No issues reported here. let us go back and look at the Samsung Galaxy One, where we have the second version of the app running there. Yes, we have an issue here. So you can see it is reported as a warning here. And if you go down, you will see that there is a warning created telling that a change in UI is observed. It is given as a warning because from a functional perspective, everything works fine. The functionality was to go to the demo link and click on that link. Everything worked fine. But from a UI perspective, as there is a change in the UI, so the automation is capturing it. Now let us look at the UI report. So this is the UI report, and you can see for Samsung device, it is coming as unresolved. So you will see the changes also here. There is a change in the UI compared to the baseline or the last execution. So it has captured here, wherein in the Nexus device, both these reports are same. So let us look into the performance part also. So the report which I've opened earlier, now it has come up. So you can see the details. So anyway, this Rohit will be going through this report in detail. But the one thing which I wanted to highlight here is that you can see the details which it has captured here. Okay, so you have a video file here which gives you the details of what has happened in the screen. You have an HTTP traffic file which has captured all the HTTP traffic between your application, from your application basically. You have a network packet capture logs which has basically captured all the network packets from your application, basically the API calls which the application has made with the backend UI. You have the APM logs here which basically talks about what has happened in the APM automation server. You have the device logs here which basically talks about what has happened in the device. And also this particular execution is done on a device which is sitting in Mountain View, which is running in AT&T SIM. So if you look at here, right, it has covered your network aspect, it has covered your location aspect, it has provided view with a full full 360-degree view of the execution or the complete defect. So you can debug it from a device log, you can debug it from a network side, you can debug it from an HTTP traffic side as well. So Anand and Rohit will explain you more about the performance report as well as Applitools reports. So over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Nyson. So that showed a very good end-to-end perspective of how you can leverage your functional automation to include different aspects of testing that are essential from a validation perspective, namely user experience, look and feel, and also performance. Let's dig a little bit deeper into what this user experience validation or look and feel validation from Applitools does for us. So Nyson already explained how these results come into picture, right? The way it is happening is Applitools has got more than 40 different SDKs which can integrate with your automation solution. So we've got various different SDKs for the web, all language bindings of Selenium and so on. For mobile as well, all language bindings of APN and various others. And we've got some other SDKs as well for screenshot desktop and codeless also. Once this integration into your existing framework is done and you run your functional automation test, results will start showing up in your Applitools dashboard. On the left-hand side is what we call as a batch view in the test manager. Batch view is essentially a collection of tests that you are running together in a particular group fashion. You could also term it in some fashion like a smoke sanity regression. So inside the batch, you will see a list of tests that have executed along with that batch. The summary view will tell you what has passed, failed, or unresolved. So in the case where Nyson explained about one test running with the older version of the app where there was a visual issue, and Applitools has marked it as unresolved because Applitools uses its AI capabilities to find what differences exist in your screenshot that is captured compared with the baseline. But we don't take a decision for you to say if this is right or wrong. The product could have evolved, and that's why that difference has shown up. And likewise, the test manager shows various other aspects of validations, which you can get some good sense in terms of trending and narrowing down where you want to investigate further. Let's look at some other examples what are possible from a visual validation perspective. If I take an example of a Yahoo Finance app, which is a native app running on Android, the left-hand side is your baseline. The right-hand side image is your checkpoint. That is a screenshot that is captured when the test ran the next time. And this is a comparison done. The checkpoint is compared with the baseline. A new test runs, a new checkpoint will be compared with the same baseline unless you have updated your baseline. Okay. Now, it also shows what algorithm, AI algorithm is used for doing the validation. In this case, we have used a strict algorithm for doing the validation. And if I highlight the differences over here, it is telling me all the differences that are seen from a visual perspective over here. And this algorithm, now, because it's looking at whatever is different to the human eye, it has identified all those differences for you over here. But you might say that, no, this is a dynamic data app and the data is going to keep changing. So for me, these differences are a false negative, right? I don't want to come here and say that this is just a data difference that is wasting my time. So in such cases, you could also use a different algorithm called layout algorithm. And in this case, what Applitools does is it analyzes internally what the images are, and it is going to tell you there are only differences which are different from a layout perspective. In this case, we found out that a particular label is missing in a box over here, and that has been found as a difference. And if you have got Jira integration, you could just mark that issue as a failure. You can put the title as label missing and create a Jira ticket out of it, and it will be reported directly in your Jira ticketing system. You could also have different capabilities over here to say, for example, I see an ad that shows up in this section intermittently, and I don't control the ad if it can show up or not, or what will be there in that particular ad. So I want to ignore that specific region, and I could ignore that very easily. In some cases, the layout might itself be dynamic, where you can say, for example, if NASDAQ as a region can move around to the left or right based on the data to maintain the distance between Dow and crude, you could use a floating region for NASDAQ. And as long as the inner box of NASDAQ is within the bounds of the outer box, we are telling Applitools do not mark this as a visual difference. So this can become a very powerful way for you to get a good visual validation based on the context of your application, and you can get this done automatically. The beauty of this solution is that this is all done automatically for you. You don't have to create the baselines separately. You run the test the first time, the baseline will be created for you. The next time you run the test, we'll compare the screenshots taken with the baseline. Applitools algorithm does not really differentiate between, or rather, we don't have a separate implementation for web or native or PDF. Once a screenshot is captured, our AI engine will do the similar kind of processing, in some cases to more detail, but in otherwise it's very similar across web or native as well. So here's an example from a cross-browser testing case where we are able to compare between different browsers as well. Another very interesting aspect when it comes to visual validation and in the CI/CD ecosystem, when we're talking about how do you enable shift left. So Applitools also has a capability called root cause analysis, which if it is enabled on your particular account, you can highlight a difference and we will tell you what is the CSS or DOM change that has caused that visual difference to happen. And now you know exactly what the difference is, why this particular visual difference has shown up. When you create a ticket, or the UI developer can come take a look over here and can fix the problems much more faster. Last bit I want to talk about before I hand it over to Rohit is you don't run the only one test in one combination. You are running your set of tests against multiple devices or multiple browsers in different viewport sizes in CI. So your same set of tests is running in many combinations. So as the product evolves, we don't want you to spend a lot of time in trying to go through each and every test which has been executed and find out what the difference is and why is that happening. And that is the point where automated visual testing also starts failing, right? How easy or difficult it is to take those decisions. So if we have a capability in such situations, which is called group steps by similar differences, where Applitools will analyze all the test execution that has happened in the batch, and it will try and group all the similar differences in specific buckets of similar differences. So as soon as this analysis is complete, we'll be able to see that we had 19 tests which resulted in 76 unresolved steps in those, which has been grouped into two buckets of 40 and 36 steps each. These are marked as unresolved because there is some visual difference in them. If we inspect it a little closely, we'll observe that in this case, the difference was because the color of the logo has changed. Now, this is not really a defect because my product could have evolved to update the logo. I'm doing a rebranding exercise. So I'm just going to come here and do a thumbs up and accept the differences. And I move on to the next bucket where if I see now instead of the logo color changing to green, the logo is missing. In this case, I will just quickly highlight this as a defect. And once the defect is highlighted, I'll do a thumbs down. And all these steps have been marked as failed now. So if I come now to my test summary, I will see that 47% have passed and 53 have failed because of these reasons. So with these intelligent AI-based capabilities, we are also solving the problem of baseline management and taking quick action on those decisions by easily integrating with our existing automation solution. Hope that makes it clear. No, it was very quick and rushed, but that hopefully paints a picture of how good visual validation can be done as part of your functional testing as well. Rohit, to you to take it home.
Thank you, Anand. I think that was a visual treat. So now moving on to the next part, which is the performance piece, which we are looking at. So each test, each automation test that runs has a performance session attached to it. Again, there's no integration required here at all. It's just another Appium capability that needs to be enabled. So once you do that, each test will have this beautiful report. Geography of this report, I think we already went through the location of the test, the video recording, and all the logs and data are here. And as you scroll down, this is basically the network data, which is giving you an X-ray vision into your app for this particular test. Once this test is completed, there's an AI engine which basically analyzes all this data and spits out the issues that are there on the left-hand side. Right. So we can look at an example which at greater detail. Here is another example. Again, in this case, the application under test is Wish. It's an e-commerce application very popular in North America. So again, here is the video recording. All the data is here. And as you scroll down, so this is the waterfall UI, which is basically an X-ray vision into your app, telling you all the network requests that are made for the app for this particular test. And as I hover on this waterfall UI, if you see the video on the right-hand side, it's basically getting updated, right? So basically we're opening the Wish application, logging into the app, and then searching for an item, browsing through the item, adding the item to the cart, and then going to checkout. Pretty standard for a e-commerce app, right? So once this test case is completed, there's an AI engine which basically analyzes all this data and spits out all the issues that are there in the app on the left-hand side. So these issues are basically user experience and network performance issues, right? So these are all the user experience and network performance issues. So let's look at one of them and probably we'll understand it in much better detail. Low page content. So this is a user experience issue. The yellow bars on the right here are basically telling you that these are areas of poor user experience, and for this particular period of time, the app was unusable by the user. And how do I know that? When I hover on this particular yellow bar, if you see the video on the right hand side, it's basically a blank screen. The app is unusable by the user at this interval for 5.24 seconds. If you see the impact time is 5.24 seconds, that is the time duration for which the app was unusable by the user, right? So once we come out of this region, the app basically loads and it's interactable and you can use the app. So now with Headspin, you were able to find an area of poor user experience. Now we want to find out what could be causing this particular 5-second delay, right? So for that, we basically zoom into this region and see all the network requests that are made in this particular time interval, right? So majority of requests are coming from these two domains. And if you see closely, there are actually 4 colors giving you a breakdown of the time spent on each API request. Orange is your TCP connection time. On the right hand side, you can see the details of the request. it's connecting to this particular IP on the port, and there's TLS connection time, and then green is your first byte time, the time spent on waiting on the server. Let's say first byte time, and blue is the time to actually download the request, just 35 milliseconds. So there are actually details of the request that you can see. It's a post request to wish.com. Request size, response, it was a 200 OK response. You can go one step deeper and look at the request headers and response headers, right? So now, okay, we understand that the response times, if you see here, for the wait times for these two hosts are a little high, right? 500 milliseconds, 2 seconds, right? So now we want to find out, is it just these few requests, or is it generally something that's going on with the API's server, right? So for that, you basically go scroll up and look at it from a host level matrix. So wish.com 443, and this will give you a very high level view. And when I hover on this, if you see, the wait time is 39 seconds for 100 requests. It's like it's 39 seconds are spent waiting on the server to get a response. So there's definitely a problem. It could be for multiple reasons. Either the load balancer is busy, it's overloaded, or basically the load balancer is not able to basically route this request to the right server, or maybe the users are actually geographically farther away from where the API server is actually located. So now from just running your automation tests, you have so much more visibility, and you have insights into what is happening in each of your test cases, and also debug from a user experience to narrow down to a network performance issue standpoint, right? So, and also you can, there's other network performance issues that are out there to basically look at. Connection reuse. When you click on this, there is a definition for each of these issue cards, and it will also tell you how and what you can do to basically fix it. And connection reuse is basically each time a new TCP connection is opened, there's a three-way handshake and the TCP TLA handshakes that happen, which basically add to the network delay, right? So I'll not go into the details of each and every one, but performance is not a one size fits all, right? So it's a minor changes that bring in turn bring a better user experience overall, right? And there is also the client-side metrics that we capture, which I can show you from here, which is basically the CPU, memory, battery, and other client-side metrics like the frame rate. This is basically telling you how is user experience can depend on when the frame rate drops below a certain FPS, or basically the performance will go down. And the number of TCP connections that are open at any point of time in the app, and all these time series are basically tied to the video that is there on the right hand side, which is very key. So at any point of time, if you want to get the snapshot of the system, you can just hover on the waterfall UI, and it will give you the snapshot of what is the CPU usage, what is the frequency of the CPU, the memory used, the IO, the number of writes and reads, the battery temperature, how much of battery is draining. So it is very, very fine grained, and you can go to a lot of details from this particular report. I think that's all I had from a demo perspective. Going back, here are some of the key takeaways. And I'll not go through each one of them given the time constraint that we have, but you can, since this presentation and the video recording will be sent, you can go through them. We've put that so that you can go through it once we send it out. And here is the summary wherein you can use Applitools for AI-based automated UI visual testing, seamless integration with existing functionality with automation frameworks, and a headspin wherein there's a global device cloud, which gives you access to real devices and real networks around the world. And on top of which you can do is there is performance analysis and monitoring using our AI-based issue detection system. And of course, Wipro, which ties together beautifully both Applitools and Headspin with their automation framework. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of summary of today's webinar, wherein we tie the functional, performance, and the user experience together. Open it up for questions.
Sure. So we are over the time limit, but let's just take 2 quick questions. And as I said, everyone that their question did not get answered now, we will answer via email. So if you have any other questions that you want to share with us, then please write them in the questions panel, and we will answer by via email. So first question, Rohit, this one is for you. What are the logs that are available as part of the performance sessions?
Sure. So each performance session captures the APM logs, the device logs, and there's a PCAP, which is the packet capture that is available, and with an SSL key log to decrypt it. That gives you basically, if you want to look at it, look at the network capture from a packet level per se. You can basically go there and look at it. And also there is the HTTP archives, like there is HAR, MAR, and the CSV that you can download and look at the HTTP requests. And also the video recording, if you want to kind of index it in your database or in part of your regression test, if you want to download the video. So there's also the video captured for the complete test that you can download. Yeah.
The next question, next and last, unfortunately, because we're out of time. So the next question is for Anand. Can I consider automated visual testing as a replacement for functional testing?
In some ways you can, but I would recommend not. Because functional testing, you're doing more than just validating the UI. You're doing some inner logic business validation testing as well. And in that particular context, how is your UI supposed to be rendered and seen, right? So these are really complementing aspects to each other, and they fit in very well together, fortunately as well, with the right type of solution as was demoed today as well. So I would not go to the extent of saying you can replace functional testing with visual testing, but it can work very well seamlessly, and you can have a good strategy to balance it out.
Great. So again, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. Before I will let our speakers say their goodbyes, I just want to quickly thank everyone that joined us today for this live session, and of course thank our guest speakers, Nisan Jose, Rohith Ramesh, and Anand Bagmar. And again, before they say their goodbyes, I just want to remind you that the link to the recording of this session, along with the slide deck, will be emailed to you by end of day Monday, and I hope to see you all again at our next event.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Hope there was something for everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great day.